Welcome back, folks. Today we're going to be making a turkey, mushroom and potato pie. It was originally just going to be a turkey and mushroom pie, but when I was in the garden the other day I found some potatoes that had overwintered, just a small little bunch, so I thought I might as well throw them into. So we'll just go through what we need. We need some turkey breast. This is already pre-cooked turkey breast. If you don't have turkey, substitute chicken, but remember this is a turkey pie. Potatoes, they are optional. An onion, mushrooms, and I have 4 cloves of garlic here, 4 large cloves of garlic. If you don't like that much garlic, then just put in what you like. I have some nice turkey broth, which I'm going to use to make the sauce that all of this will go in. Some salt and pepper, a little bit of dried tarragon from the garden, and in here we have some summer savory. If you don't have summer savory, then just use some dried thyme. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to chop up the potatoes to cook them so they're just about cooked. Chop up the turkey, the mushrooms, the onion, the garlic, and then we can get making the filling. Okay, off camera I have blanched my potatoes. If you're using potatoes, this is an addition that I wasn't originally planning to put into the pie, but as mentioned I dug them up in the garden. So they've been blanched, so they're still tender and not mushy. You want the texture in the pie, so make sure that you only cook them for a short while until there's still a little bit of bite to them. I've also gone ahead and chopped up in rather big chunks my mushrooms, my garlic and my onion, and again that's all for texture, along with the turkey breast that I have just broken up. And I did notice actually when I went through this there was a little bit of the leg meat in there as well, so that's extra flavour. Now whenever I make a pie I always like to fry the mushrooms, the onions and the garlic together first to give them a little bit of colour, because that adds a little bit more flavour into the finished product. So I'm going to get on off camera and do that. In order to keep the video at a reasonable length, there'll be a few little steps that I do off camera, because really it's self-explanatory. So all I have is my cast iron skillet. Now this morning I fried off a rabbit, and as you know here we waste not want not, so I'm going to use that oil and all the juices of the rabbit in there and the salt and pepper to fry off these vegetables, and then we will come back. Okay, so I have just quickly fried off my mushrooms, garlic and onion, just so they have a nice little bit of coloration on them. And as you can see they're speckled with the pepper that I was in the pan remaining from when I did the rabbit this morning. So I have in the pan here some flour and some butter to start making the sauce for our pie filling. And really what we're having to do here now is we're just going to melt the butter and the flour together, and we're going to cook this for a few minutes just to take the raw taste out of the flour. So we just really work it around the pan, not on too high a heat because it will actually start to burn. And as you can see it's starting to bubble up nicely. Now this will change colour as you cook it. So it started off with this colour and it will turn a little bit of a brown colour, and at that point you know that it's ready to start adding your stock. If you let this cook too long then it can go a little bitter because the butter starts to burn. So just be mindful about that. So we just keep whisking it around, moving it around the pan, making sure that it doesn't stick onto the bottom there. Otherwise we'll end up with little bits in the sauce, and that's not desirable either. And when I find it starts to get ready, it starts to bubble a little bit, as you can see right there. So we're just going to continue to cook that down a little bit more. Just keep it moving around the pan. And you may notice I did have quite a bit of butter and flour in the bottom of my pan, but that's because I have quite a lot of ingredients. And today I am only going to be making the one pie, but there will be enough filling probably for 2 pies, which I will just put the remainder in the freezer for another day. So we're just starting to get a nice froth and a nice little bit of colour on our roux here. And then what I'm going to start doing gradually is incorporating my turkey broth. Now, if you don't have fresh turkey broth or chicken broth, then just substitute with a stock cube of your choice. So we're just going to start adding this in. And at this point you might just want to turn the heat up a little bit more. And as you can see, it's starting to thicken already. And we keep moving that around the pan. So in between adding the stock, make sure that you get it well incorporated, that there's no lumps in there. And then we go ahead and we add another bit more. Now, some of you may be saying, why am I adding so much stock rather than doing it gradually? This is the way I do it. It's quick and it works. And you may also notice that there's some little things in here, and that's just bits of the turkey carcass that I never strain the stock or the broth. So that's some extra little bits in there. So as you can see, it's thickening up nicely. And I'm going to continue to add in my broth until either the sauce is thick enough or all my broth is used up. And at that point I will bring you back. The sauce has been cooking down now for about 5 minutes and it's exactly where I want it to be. As you can see, it's a nice, rich, thick sauce. And I have tasted this and I have seasoned it with some black pepper and salt. Not too much salt, we don't eat a lot of salt in our diet here, but you just season to your taste. So I'm just going to simply turn the heat off there, and all that we have to do now is take our ingredients and just plop them in. So we add in the mushrooms, the potatoes, scraping all the last little bits off, and the tarragon and the some savory or thyme, depending on what you can get where you live. So we put that in there, and then we add in our turkey, and that will all just incorporate nicely into there. Just stir it around. And the ingredients there are just about right for the sauce. It's always nice to have a lot of sauce, and it will thicken up more as it cooks in the pie. So that is the pie filling finished, and we just need to let that cool down a little bit. Another addition that you could put in here is a little bit of mustard, which would go nice, but we have mustard with the meal. So I'm just going to put that aside now, let that cool down, and the next stage is we need to make our flaky pastry. So time to make our pastry, and for pies I always like to make a flaky pastry, and it's a really easy flaky pastry recipe. And all we have here is our quantity of white flour. I always use organic flour. And half the amount of butter to what I have flour. Now, different from the short crust pastry where we just chop the butter up into small little cubes to incorporate to breadcrumb stage, with the flaky pastry we take a grater and we actually grate the butter into the flour. So first thing is you need to make sure that your butter is nice and cold. And a good little technique is to roll the butter into the flour because it helps you to grate it. This is a trick I picked up a little while ago. and it works quite well. So we just grate all of the butter into our flour, like so. And then we move on to our bigger block, and again, just keep rolling it in the flour and it doesn't clog up the grater or clog up your hands. And the reason why I like the flaky pastry is because it resembles a puff pastry without the harassment of actually making a puff pastry. This pastry, I find, does rise a little bit like puff pastry, and it's my go-to for all the pies that I make. Short crust pastry I generally just tend to use for quiches, and if you want to see that video, then there is a link at the end of this video for you to check out the quiche, the nettle quiche that I made the other day. So we just continue to grate all of the butter, and don't worry too much if you end up with lumps in there, you know, like that for example. Don't worry too much. So we have all of the butter, and as always, make sure you get every last little drop. Now, it's very important that we don't work this pastry too much. So all I'm doing here is I'm just roughly incorporating the grated butter into the flour. As soon as this butter starts to melt, it's going to lose the ability to create the layers which you want. So we just simply mix it all in like that, and then straight away we start adding in our water. And again, bit by bit, don't load it with water to begin with, and don't overwork it. As you can see, I'm very ever so lightly just working that pastry. So we'll see where we are with that. And it's starting to come together now. It needs a little bit more. Resist the urge to squeeze it too much, again, because you're going to condense the butter too much, and you need those little strands of butter to stay in the grated form and not all be mushed up into the flour. Obviously you need to squeeze it a little bit when it comes towards the end there. And for me, that pastry is just about done. So I'm going to clean off my hands, and we'll turn the pastry out onto a floured board ready for the next stage. Okay, so the pastry is now on my floured side, and again I am using a aluminium pie tin. My pie tin is a bit battered up, as are my quiche tins, so I've gone to use these because I can't get to town at the moment to buy a new tin. So we are just going to make the one pie today, and what we need to do, instead of splitting the dough in half, we need to make sure that we have enough for the bottom and the top. So we need a little bit over half for the bottom, there, and this will be for the top of the pie, and this will be the bottom of the pie. Now you may notice that I cut this, and the reason why is because this pastry doesn't want to be all scrunched up. So I didn't keep the pastry whole and then roll it out, do the bottom, scrunch it all back up again, and then roll it out to do the top. And the reason why is because if we do that, we're going to lose the ability for the pastry to rise and have those nice flaky layers in it. This pastry doesn't like being overly worked. So we just take our base, and all we're going to do is just simply roll out the pastry, and as you can see, it's a really easy pastry to work with. I've worked with some horrible pastries in the past where it's been so buttery it just wants to fall to pieces each time you roll it, and in the end I just came to this single recipe that just works and tastes fantastic. And if you can see, I don't know if you can see with it being on the board there, I'll bring it up to you. You can see all of the butter in here. and that is what's going to help make this pastry rise and become flaky. So we just continue to roll that out there until we have it at the right thickness and the right size that is going to fill our little pie tin. This little pie tin is a little bit smaller than the one that I usually would use. Oops. So a little bit more of a roll there. Just check thickness. We like a thick crust in our pie. So that's about done. So an easy step to fill your pie is just to fold the pastry in half. Bring your tin over and just layer it in half like that, and then just fold it out. And that makes it so much easier than trying to, you know, pick the whole thing up or use the rolling pin. So I'm just going to grab a pair of scissors, and again in the rustic fashion I'm just going to go around the edge here like so. We don't want to trim it right up to the edge because it is likely to shrink, and you know what we have left over hanging on never goes to waste, it gets munched up anyways. So excess pastry goes in a little pile at the back there because the girls always appreciate that and they always find some yummy things to do with it. So there's our pie base done, and that was so super easy and simple you just won't believe. And what we're going to do now is just roll out the top for the pie, and then it's time to fill the pie. So I will do that off camera and then I will get back to you. As you can see, I have rolled out the top of the pie, which is just over here, and I have the pie filling and it smells really, really good. I've actually eaten about 3 spoonfuls of this in between doing the video, so I can tell you it does taste good. So we're just going to load the filling into the pie, and this is where we want to be nice and generous. And as mentioned, there is enough turkey filling here to do more than one pie. So we just load that into our base, just like that. And yeah, there is definitely enough here, as you can see, to make another pie. So I'm just going to add a teeny weeny bit more into that, and I think that is sufficiently full. It's just a shame that these pie tins are a little bit smaller than what we're used to. With a pie, it would be a bigger pie. But all I'm going to do now, I don't use egg wash or milk or anything like that. I just use plain old water, and all I'm going to do is just go around the edge of the base there, just around the edge, all the way around the edge. And this just helps to seal the pie. And then we just bring over our top, and again we just place halfway over, and then just carefully unfold until it covers over the top. And then I just carefully press down around the edge like so, just so we get a nice seal on the pie. And then I take a sharp knife and I just simply go around at this point, just taking off that excess pastry. And the girls will be in here in no time. So just move the pie around there and just take off the pastry there, like so, and we'll pile that into the pile at the back there for the girls. And then just simply just go around with your thumb, turning the pie as you go. Don't worry about little bits that are hanging over the edge there. All rustic in this house, and it doesn't do anything to the flavour. So go around 2 times just with your thumb, just to make sure that the pie is nice and sealed and we're not going to end up with all the insides on the outside. And then I just use the knife again and I just put 2 little holes, little air holes in there, which just helps it cook through. And then we're going to pop this into the oven. Now I have the oven on at 360 degrees Fahrenheit until the pie is nicely risen and nice and brown. And you'll notice I don't smother it with egg wash or milk. It's got enough of a butter content in here to brown up nicely without any of those extras. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this in the oven and we will see what it looks like when it's ready. So here is the finished pie, and it's been out the oven for about 10 minutes now, so I've been able to put it on a plate. So I'm just going to try and take you down here just so you can see the pastry. And as you can see, it is nice and flaky, and it has some really nice layers all the way through there, all the way around. And you saw in the video how easy and simple that pastry was to make, and the end result is wonderful. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, give a thumbs up and share. It really does help. And I will see you on the next video. Bye for now.